It's May 20th, 1964, the Nevada desert. At a test site with a name only the government could love, Jackass Flats. You almost have to admire the honesty. A patch of sunburned land perfectly named for the work done there. Equal parts genius and lunacy. In the desert, sanity blistered in the heat that day, while man tried to make a nuclear reactor fly. They called it Project Pluto, named for the Roman god of the underworld. A fitting title for the machine meant to crawl out of hell and never go back. And in true arrogance of the time, no one seemed to notice the irony. It was a huge leap, far beyond the liquid-fueled rockets of the time. While early rockets sputtered out after minutes, Pluto promised to roar for days because at its heart was an atomic inferno that made the space race look like a science fair. The concept was straightforward in theory and suicidal in practice. A missile that never needed fuel. Instead of carrying propellant, it would gulp the air around it and run that air straight through a small, unshielded nuclear reactor. The heat from the reactor would expand the air and blast it out the back at Mach 3. No flames, no booster rockets, just a stream of atomic breath tearing through the sky. In plain English, it was a jet engine with a uranium heart. It didn't need refueling because the fuel was the reactor itself. You could launch it and let it fly until the end of time, or until it disintegrated from its own madness. The Air Force called it the Supersonic Low Altitude Missile, or SLAM. Low enough to hug terrain, fast enough to break windows with shockwaves, and armed with multiple hydrogen nuclear weapons. It wasn't just a bomb. It was a flying monument to Cold War overconfidence. And it worked. Well, sort of. Not in flight, but in theory and testing on the ground. In 1964, the Tory 2C prototype roared to life at Jackass Flats. 7 miles of steel piping fed air to the unshielded reactor. And for nearly 5 minutes, it held. No explosions, no meltdowns, just unfiltered power screaming through the desert. A success that no one could ever safely repeat. The idea had been born in 1957 when the U.S. was convinced that the Soviet Union had missiles pointed and coming our way. Sputnik had humiliated America. The Cold War was in full paranoia mode, and the solution to fear was always the same: build something bigger, faster, and louder. Ted Merkel led the project, the kind of man who looked at danger and saw potential energy. To him, radiation wasn't a threat. It was just misunderstood fire. And to be fair, they did understand that radiation could kill. It would burn, cause sickness, the obvious stuff. But what they didn't grasp was its patience. They didn't know it can linger, accumulate, and quietly ruin everything it touched. So to engineers of the time, radiation was a number on a chalkboard, not a ghost that would follow you home. And at Jackass Flats, that philosophy thrived. The site was a rickety patchwork of compressors, pipelines, and metal shacks wired together by optimism, caffeine, and cigarettes. Nobody there thought they were crazy. They thought they were pioneers. Every test was remote because getting too close meant joining the experiment permanently. And when the Tory ran, it wasn't a weapons test. It was a science fiction prophecy in motion. The air pressure slammed through the test rig hard enough to shake instruments miles away. The desert roared, and every man in that bunker grinned like a little kid with a firecracker, because they had done it. They had made the nuclear power roar. But then came the hangover. The engineers realized there was no safe way to actually fly it. Launching would have meant showering radiation over anything in its path. If the guidance failed, and it could have, the missile might have pinballed across the hemisphere, dropping warheads and glowing all the way home. They joked about it in the cafeteria, half proud and half terrified. One man said, "We've built the world's most dangerous boomerang." Maybe. But it was the kind of line that only makes sense when you're in too deep and you really can't step back. By 1964, though, reality caught up. Intercontinental ballistic missiles could already do the same job without the radioactive exhaust. And we were learning a little bit more about radiation and how it stays. The new rockets were cheaper, faster, cleaner. So the Air Force pulled the plug. And Project Pluto never flew. The reactors were just left to rust, and the desert went back to silence. But the insanity of it all still echoes. Because for a moment, they really tried. They really thought, we can strap a nuclear reactor to a missile and let it rip. And nobody stopped them until the math made it pointless. It wasn't evil. It wasn't carelessness. It was just human. With the same curiosity that lit the first fire and split the first atom, they understood the danger they could see, but not the kind that waits till the end. So Pluto isn't a cautionary tale. It's more of some things we should do and some things we shouldn't do even though we can, like irradiating cows along its flight path all the way across the earth. How nice. But it was a monument to the kind of thinking that wins wars and nearly redefines insanity. The scientists at Jackass Flats weren't villains. They were more like explorers with slide rules and actually very few rules at all. The only crime could be said it was the ambition without the brakes. And maybe that's what makes it so fascinating, because the line between brilliance and madness has always kind of been drawn with a pencil. But at Jackass Flats, it was written in uranium. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to leave us a comment at paulg@paulgnewton.com. Or if you want to send some hate mail, I'm good with that too. Visit paulgnewton.com and get your swag too, by the way, or just send us money. That way we can continue to make these podcasts. If you enjoyed it, please let me know. And don't irradiate any cows.